Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Ratliff Mandolins Weekly Production Diary. I've got all sorts of things on the job jar list to do this week, but I think we're going to concentrate on one thing for the purpose of this video, and that is the binding treatment for mandolin number 1. Now, if you're following the series and you know that last week we finished the last piece of binding, main binding, on mandolin number 1. But there are some special little tricks that we're going to do to fancy that binding up. And so that's what we'll concern ourselves with in this week's video. Let me go get mandolin number 1 and show you. Mandolin number 1, this is the shape that it's in right at the moment. The top binding is relatively clean and sanded and smooth. The back and the back binding itself on the sides and here has a lot of glue squeeze out, needs to be cleaned up. This little edge right here needs to be prettied up, and so we have a little bit of prep work to do before we can actually do our little special things. Now, the special things that we're going to do concern this piece of black, white, black binding that goes around this edge here. We're going to leave this one alone, but this one right here. So what we're wanting to do is replace this wooden piece here with a ivory piece and cut this black, white, black binding and make this inner white strip here go all the way around and connect from the back to the front, from the back to the front, from the back to the front, back to the front, and the white piece of binding here. And then we're going to break one of these pieces of binding and make a decorative floral kind of thing, some sort of little scroll work pattern with this black, white, black here around exactly where the tailpiece is going to be. So we're going to frame the tailpiece in with this black, white, black binding. And we'll do it right here on this holder jig. Okay, here's a close-up, and let me explain what we're going to do. This piece of wood right here that you can see is different than this piece of wood, is a temporary insert that's been put in there. We're going to carve it out, and we're going to carve this black, white, black strip and this black, white, black strip out. Everything down to this line right here. Then we're going to come back, cut 45-degree angles in the remaining black, white, and black strip, and put a black, white, and black strip right down through here and on both sides, this side and this side. And then we're going to insert a white piece of ivory right here to fill in the gap, and that'll be the finished product on both sides. And hopefully it'll look something along these lines right there. That's the plan. Both body points. And then this mandolin is going to get a James tailpiece. So we're going to come here and find exactly where this tailpiece is going to sit. Somewhere right along in here. That's where the tailpiece is going to sit. And then we're going to break either this line or this line and rebind this in some fancy little filigree floral pattern. You know, I don't really have a pattern yet, but we're going to do some sort of fancy pattern in this black, white, black material around this tailpiece. And I have a couple of books to help me with the design element for that area around the tailpiece. A couple of books I've had for 30 years, and one of the best investments I've ever made. Scroll Ornaments of the Early Victorian Period and just absolutely full of all sorts of designs, fancy floral designs. And the other one is Florid Victorian Ornament. Both these books are from the Dover Press, and I think they're still in business. So just all kinds of things to look at. And I have actually kind of isolated a couple of things here. I think this one seems to give me a few ideas for what to do around that tailpiece, and a couple from this little drawing right here. So I'm going to mix and match and take an idea from here and there and come up with something that satisfies me to put in that area. But first, we need to, before we can ever even start, we need to clean off the excess glue and everything from the binding job on the back. All right, these sides have all been scraped, cleaned up, leveled up, sanded down to 80 grit paper. So now we can move on, and we're going to work on these 2 points here. And we'll just start with this point right here because it's the easiest one to get to. And so I'm just going to take a razor knife, an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to carve away this temporary strip. Okay, so now you can very clearly see that that temporary piece of maple has been taken out. Now what's going to happen is we're going to come right here and cut a small channel for that black, white, black strip to continue here, and we'll do it on this side as well. Inlay, cut a joint right here, 45-degree right here and right here, and just make this whole thing just come here, continue this way and all the way around. So we're going to have to carve away not only this temporary wooden filler, but this much of the black, white, black as well. Right here's got to go. And now the path is clear to bring this strip of binding, turn it, come this way, down, and close this whole panel off. And to do that, I have to cut the channel for this added black, white, black strip to fit into. And to do that, I'm going to turn this thing in this jig. Now the channel is cut, so it's time to cut the binding pieces here and fit the piece that goes in the middle. And I think we have this piece cut to fit right now. So that's what it looks like before it's glued. And now this piece of binding is glued on and wrapped and clamped exactly where it needs to be. Yay. And here it is after this side has been installed. And now it just needs to be cleaned up and have the filler piece installed, which is going to be a chunk of supplied by the customer, a chunk of woolly mammoth ivory, I think is what he said this was. So that's what we're getting ready to put in this empty hole right here. Okay, so we now have this hole more or less cleaned up, and we've got this ivory chunked off into kind of a triangular piece. We have to fit this thing down in here to make it the right shape. So the first thing we're going to do is adjust the length this way so that it'll fit down in the slot. Now I have it very, very close, and I have a little needle file. I'm just taking a little bit off at a time. Until it fits. It's pretty close, getting pretty close right there. Now we have a good tight fit, but as you can see, it does not come anywhere near to being shaped correctly. So I'm going to take a really sharp pencil and mark it here and here, here, and here, underneath here, and here, and sand and file everything outside of that pencil line. Now I have moved away from that big heavy sander. I've got it where it's pretty close. It just needs really just a little bit of this overhang here to be taken off, which I'm not going to take it all off until after I glue, but at least right now I can go and get a little bit more, a little bit closer to the final fit. And here's the fit before it's glued. You can still catch your fingernail on it, so I'll sand it down to the final dimensions after it's glued. But here's the way it's going to look more or less in when it's done. Okay, so there it is. It's glued in, and now I'm just going to, while this one's drying, move up, start on this point right here. And there we have the second point. All the little black, white, black strips have been glued on. And once that dries, we'll clean it up and put the bone piece in that empty hole. Now I have both body points installed, and it's time to move on to the tailpiece area. I have the center line drawn. We're going to take one of the tail pieces, put it exactly on the center line, and pencil that area off. Now we're going to make some swirly vine pattern fit that area. I have a piece of carbon paper, lay right here, and I have a test design. This is something that I think may work. We're going to tape that down, carbon trace that, and just see what it looks like. So there, the design is penciled on. That's basically what we're going to wind up with, I think. Now we just got to figure out the best way to do it. Now we're going to do this pattern with this material right here. It's a black, white, black strip. And so we can bend it into our little curly cues and everything and inlay it down into the side wood. We're going to cut the slot with this tool right here, which is basically just three X-Acto blades put in one handle, and the middle blade is ground down so that it's not part of the cutting equation. And we're just going to drag that across the wood until we score and deepen the track, basically enough to dig it out with this tool right here, which is yet another X-Acto blade, just ground down to a certain shape. And in between the two cuts, we'll just get in there and dig that out until finally we have a square bottomed channel that we will fit that down into. So let's get started. Now, if you'll look at this pattern, you'll see that it has one main line that starts here, sort of the big main pattern theme line, works its way down through here and goes all the way out into its mirror image on this side over here. So I think I'll just start with that line right there. I'm going to inlay this one piece of binding all the way through down both sides. Now, 2.5 hours later, I have that first slot cut, and we have the piece of binding ready to fit in there. So that's basically what it's going to look like. All I need to do is take the binding back out, spread some glue, put it all together. Okay, the first piece of binding is glued in, and I'm just going to take a piece of glass and scrape off the excess. Nice and smooth, and we're ready for piece number 2. Piece number 2. The thing about doing work like this is you have to think really, really small. This little teeny thing here has to pretty much take up your entire field of vision and just be the whole world, you know, so to speak. You can't just sit back and look at it from afar. You have to get right up on it and think in those terms. Let me cut in here and say that while indeed this has been primary mandolin number 1 across the course of the week, I have also got a lot of other work done, including the truss rods installed and fretboard extenders, and the fretboards glued on mandolins number 6 and mandolin number 7, mandolin number 8, and the final holdout in the batch was mandolin number 10. So that every mandolin in this batch now, including the 2 extras that we made, everything has its fretboards glued on and the peg head overlays for the ones that are going to have peg head overlays. Now it's pretty late Friday evening, so I'm going to close this video off, and I will show you just exactly how far along I got on this. Grand total here of 20 or 21 little tiny pieces of inlay that's going to go in this area right here. And I've got, I think, 10 of them done. So I'm about halfway done with this. And I'd like to thank you for sitting with me through the whole thing. Come back each and every week for the next exciting episode of the Ratliff Mandolins weekly production diary. Hit the like and subscribe button. Leave me some comments. I always appreciate the comments. And let me give you a good look at just how far along I got with this binding job here.